Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the show Live Well with Barrie. As you know, it's a show about inspirational people with a great story to tell that may encourage people to be better people. Here we have a walking encyclopedia, Miss Cherri Class. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you.
She's a lady, so you have to kiss the hand. Now, this lady, as I said, is a walking encyclopedia, and she tried to slip through my fingers, and I wasn't having it. It's taken about how many months to get this?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. So I'm so honoured to have you. How have you been?
I've been very well, thank you, and lovely to be.
You're not only an encyclopedia, you're a socialite. You're never in your house. I've never seen anything like it.
I make the most of the time I have at the moment, so while I've got the time, I'm using it.
You definitely are using it. I mean, how do you have the energy? You're literally somewhere every other night, if not every night.
Most nights. Well, you know, you've got to get up and go, and just that's it.
But it's lovely that it's a lot of music-based stuff as well.
Yes, like, definitely. It's a mixture. It's theatre, art galleries, music, some sort of culture. That's a busy schedule. Oh, and then I do have some charity work as well. So,
I mean, there are only 24 hours in the day, of which 8 you're allowed to sleep, of which I'm sure you don't sleep for 8.
Sometimes, yeah.
Now tell me about growing up. Where are you from originally?
Right, well, I was born in Middlesex Hospital, which doesn't exist anymore, but right in the middle of the West End. And
where was that then, Middlesex Hospital?
Was, oh God, parallel to Oxford Street.
Okay.
Between Oxford Circus and Tottenham Court Road.
Nowhere near Middlesex.
Nowhere near Middlesex. No, right in the centre of town.
Right.
And lived virtually all my life in St John's Wood, but spent a lot of time in Clapton in Hackney.
Right.
At weekends I used to spend a lot of time with my grandmother over there, so had a social life over there as well.
God, all over London. You're all like over. Marjorie, spread out.
Oh yes.
What was school life like? Where did you go to school?
I went to primary school in St John's Wood, and then went to, it sounds very grand, but it wasn't that grand. It was a grammar school, and it was called Paddington and Maida Vale High School for Girls, and it was in Elgin Avenue in Maida Vale.
Right, okay, Elgin, like Sunderland?
Yes, close to Sunderland Avenue.
That's right, yeah. And were your school years pleasurable? Did you enjoy school?
Yes, I did. I mean, I was always quite sporty, so I was often in the netball team, the hockey team. I mean, especially I think with girls, if you're sporty, you have to do everything because there's lots of girls who don't want to. I think your social activity
started from then. You were in everything and everywhere.
Oh, yes, I was.
Okay. So what was your first job?
Well, when I left school, in fact, when I was still at school in the sixth form, I worked part-time for the play centre service. Right. And so that was working with 5 to 11-year-olds, and that happened a couple of nights after school and in the school holidays.
And what were you doing with them?
Well, it was play mainly, so you were organising little games for them.
Because they're still kind of cute at that age, aren't they? 5 and 11,
well, sweet. Some of them. There was one, I was working in somewhere near Parliament Hill Fields, and no, I think it was closer to sort of Haverstock Hill, that kind of area, and they were quite rough. And I do remember a 3-year-old coming in, and they weren't allowed to come in because they were too young, and the language that came out of this child's mouth, I was very shocked, because you wouldn't, in those days especially, we wouldn't expect that from a 3-year-old. No, 3 years old. I can't even use the word that they use.
No, so, please don't use.
No, I wouldn't. So that was kind of my first experience of working, but obviously I was still at school.
Right.
When I left school, I went to Dartford College, which was to do a teaching degree, and but it was in, my major subject was PE and the second subject was art.
Right.
So that was out in Dartford, which at that time was dead.
Well, yeah, Dartford even now is like the end of the earth.
No, it's a bit more lively now than it was then.
Okay.
But, I mean, especially as just before that, I mean, before I went to college, I'd been used to, I'd gone to Ready, Steady, Go every week. I was one of the dancers there.
Wow.
And spent a lot of time in quite a few clubs in Soho, which...
You don't say.
Not those kind of clubs, no, music clubs. One of which I think is... was wonderful was the Flamingo Club, which I think people might know, of a slightly younger age, would know the WAG Club, which was the Whiskey A Go Go, which was above.
The Flamingo? So Flamingo was downstairs
and the WAG was upstairs.
I have to say, my all-time favourite club was the WAG on a Friday night. I'm sorry, but moving on.
Well, yeah. Flamingo they quite often did Saturday night all-nighters.
Right.
And then they also did Sunday lunchtime, and the band that were there regularly, as well as they played records, but they also had a band which was Gino Washington and the Ram Jam Band.
Gino Washington, that's a familiar name.
Yes, because wasn't it, I think it was, who did Come On Eileen? You know who I mean?
Yes.
Well, they also mentioned Gino Washington in one of their songs.
Right.
And he is still out on the road.
No.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, he is still there. I saw him quite a few years ago with Pat Arnold, but
right.
I hadn't seen him between Flamingo and there.
Name. We'll see her later, Miss P.P. Arnold.
Oh, yes, she's lovely, lovely lady.
Dartford. Now, what were the clubs in Dartford? Was Marlowe Rooms?
No, you had Flicks, but that was later, not when I was there.
Right, yeah.
When I was there, the high point, if you wanted a night out, you went to the... No, it wasn't invented then.
Oh, right. Oh, this is pre-Flicks.
Pre-Flicks,
I'm
yes.
way too young to remember this.
Yes,
Let's
of course, I know that. The highlight would be you would go to the Chinese restaurant, because that was a new invention in Dartford at that time.
That's how bad things were.
That was how bad. But I came home every weekend and went to the Flamingo, and I went to the Scene and...
The Chinese restaurant for a night out.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Yes, because later on, as you said, came Flicks.
Flicks, yeah.
And round the back of Flicks was Marlowe Rooms.
I don't know that one. I didn't know that one.
It was the same building, but one entrance was one side and the other.
Right, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that one. Mm.
There's a memory. Now, tell me about your time in education, because obviously you said you went to Dartford College to do the teaching degree. Tell me about your time in education. Right,
well, what happened was, in those days, if you were a PE teacher in London, you went to the College of PE and they placed you in a school.
Right.
So...
Where were you fortunately placed?
Well, I'd asked, being lazy, I thought, well, either Westminster, which is where I lived, or Camden, because that was the next borough.
Right.
And they put me in Hackney.
Okay.
And I turned up because you were virtually guaranteed the job unless there was a problem. So, but I went to meet the head teacher, and it was an old Victorian building, and I went in and it was their assembly. And so there was a main hall and then there was 2 galleries above with bars. So I walked in and it looked like a ball stool because people were looking through the bars.
I was going to say, I think the bars were a sign.
Yes. But, and the other thing was that the head teacher said, oh, yes, you did drama second at college, didn't you? And I went, no, I did art. Oh, you'd love to teach drama, wouldn't you? And I went, yes, you know, I'm 21 years old, and this old head teacher tells you would love to do it. You say, yes.
Of course, I'd love to.
What else would you say? So, but, I mean, as soon as I started, it was a really happy time. I don't say that the young people were very easy.
Right.
But I think that a lot of them, when they saw this sort of small, white, blonde woman telling them, no, it doesn't work like that, we play by my rules, that they kind of respected it and were great. They were really lovely.
Because I remember you giving me an inkling of the fact that you were in education and having to deal with some unruly kids and actually keeping them on the straight and narrow and helping them as much as you could. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, what happened was I started in the school, which was called Clissold Park School at that stage. It had been two old buildings which were Wordsworth and Defoe. They'd come together and we'd been in the old buildings for about 3-4 months, and then we moved into the brand new building in Stoke Newington, and I stayed teaching for about 4 years, but at the same time I worked part-time in the youth centre, which was a purpose-built one attached to the school.
Right.
And after 4 years, I loved that work because you were working with young people who wanted to be there and you could spend more individual time with them. And
makes a difference if they want to be there rather than being forced to be there.
So I then took over the running of the youth centre and I stayed there. The job changed quite a few times, and I wasn't just running that one. I was running about 4 others as well.
Oh, were they interlinked with each other?
Yes.
Or?
Well, it was. I had managers running them, but I was managing the managers.
You were overseeing the managers, right.
And plus I was actually working at Clissold as well.
See, this woman just loves to be busy, busy.
So I did that actually until from 1969 to 2007, when they dragged me kicking and screaming out of the youth centre into the management proper.
Literally
side.
kicking and screaming, because I like it here. I've been here forever and I don't want to go.
They had to get rid of me out of it to get rid of the youth centre. Because while I was there, there were times where they tried to shut it, but I made a fuss. And I know a lot of people don't like Diane Abbott, but she was very supportive in the non-closing of the youth centre for quite a long time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is that her constituency?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Kicking and screaming, I love that. Kicking and screaming.
Well, you know, it...
So with various cuts, they obviously wanted to cut close the youth centre.
Well, they didn't do it straight away, but, you know, it was...
So they had to get you into another role so that you're no longer involved with that, so we can get rid of that. Very strategic move.
Yes, definitely.
So what was your new role? What did you do there?
I then managed a lot of the managers throughout. There were... When I first went into the new role, there were 2 of us managing half the borough each.
Right.
So we had sort of about 6 youth centres where we would be managing the managers.
Right.
And supporting them and...
So tell me about the hands-on with the actual children themselves and how you were instrumental in keeping many of them on the straight and narrow.
I think that, as with most kids, that they appreciate someone who will tell them the truth, but they also recognise that you care, that you're not doing this job just for your paycheck at the end of the month. No. And I think that, especially in those days, you know, they definitely respected and reacted well. I'm not saying we saved everybody. No. I'm not saying people didn't get into trouble, but we tried to help divert them into more positive things to do. I mean, for instance, lots of them obviously were into music, and we had twin decks, so I would lend the kids the twin decks at the weekend so they could go and do gigs and make some money. We got some of them qualified in weight training so they could then go and work in gyms. We got them qualified as basketball coaches. We got lots of little kind of things to help them go and make a living. We also supported people who were at uni. So I thought what was good about the youth centre is we had fantastic facilities. I had my own weights room. We shared a games hall and 2 gyms with the school. We also had other school places that we could use. And so we had different types of kids there. We had kids who were already at uni but maybe wanted to come back and do some weight training or basketball or badminton. We had drama classes, a whole mixture of stuff.
Ultimately, as you say, those are the things that stay with you throughout life.
Yeah.
Your favourite teacher, and it's not the one that you can pull the wool over their eyes and get away with.
Definitely not.
It's your favourite teacher more often than not, or invariably is the one that will tell you off and will correct you. But as you say, they're genuinely interested in you and what you're doing and your progress. And the second thing, as you say, it's about engaging them in the things they're interested in. So there's no point saying, well, if you like music, well, no, I want you to do physics.
No.
Develop their interest in music because they're interested in it and develop it as far as they can go.
But we would also, there was another teacher who worked in another school but did work for me part-time called Joe White, who was the most incredible basketball teacher, and he had played at a high level. But he would work with the kids, and if they hadn't done their homework, they couldn't do their basketball.
Right.
So
the consequences.
Yes, there was consequences, and he also, made sure that they did all their schoolwork as well. So I think that was important. It wasn't, you kids, all you can do is play games or do this. We can support you through other things, but you can also enjoy what we've got to offer as well. There are quite a few of our young people who are still in music. I don't know if you know, it's more on the dance scene, not necessarily mine, but Richie Fingers and GQ.
Okay.
So, and they're still out there doing it. Doing well.
Wow. So when did you leave education?
Well, I did the management role from 2007 to 2011, and then I retired.
And then you said, I've had enough now.
Well, I wasn't that keen on the way that the youth service...
direction it was changing and going in.
No.
New managers come in.
That's the one.
And as you say, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it, but they'll try to come in and make their mark.
I obviously, I felt sorry for local authority because they'd been cut year after year after year.
Yeah, so
there's only so much they can do,
less and less to work
and I've got to say that Hackney, as a council, did put a lot of money into youth work. So
and the development of their youth.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be the way because a lot of talent has come from Hackney area. And you're seeing how it has progressed from how it was. And, obviously that's about the money and time that was put in at one stage.
Yeah.
And it's now coming to fruition.
Yeah, I think it's also about, I think especially the Caribbean youth at the time, the ones who were in London didn't have their own music. Right. They had reggae from Jamaica, they had soul music from America, but I think it was around the late 70s, early 80s where they started
to create
their own musical scene. It may have been based on soul and reggae, but it was of their own.
Of their own making.
Yeah, definitely.
So is that when your transition went into the music industry, or was it always happening alongside the education?
I think I can go back even earlier, from when I was probably still at primary school, and I told you I spent time with my grandmother at the weekend. my aunt, who was only 5 years older than me, had played piano, and she played with a band whose singer was originally Helen Shapiro.
Wow.
Until she went and had a hit.
Yeah.
And in fact, when she had a hit, my aunt took me to the Palladium to see her, and we went backstage.
Shapiro, now there's a name.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that from that early stage, and then...
What was it, Walking Back to Happiness?
That's the one. That's the one. And don't treat me like a child.
Yes. I remember Walking Back to Happiness. I don't remember the...
I think she was one of the first very young British girls to come out with hit records, and you know, it was something that young people could recognise.
Helen Shapiro, Sandy Shaw.
Sandy Shaw was a little bit later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I thought they were kind of the same era.
No. I think Helen was definitely before Sandy, because Sandy Shaw, I'm sure, appeared on Ready, Steady, Go when I was there.
Right.
So I would have been older by that time.
Right. She's done everything. So now tell me about the music, because I want to know how you got into this and this complete role change and reinvented yourself as a...
No, it all happened at the same time.
Right.
I was always working in education, but my social life was in music.
Right.
I think back to the early 70s, I'd met a singer and we went out. So through him, I met quite a lot of artists, yeah. and I think that's how what happens is that one leads to another. I mean, I think one of the most interesting people I met through him was Esther Phillips,
right? Because
he was doing some backing vocals, and so she was staying at what was then the Holiday Inn at Swiss Cottage, which I thought was very posh because they had an ice machine in the corridors. So if you wanted ice in those days, you'd go out and get your bucket of ice and you'd refill it. I'd never seen anything like it. And she was actually a really lovely, lovely woman.
The late, great Esther.
The late, great Esther Phillips. She obviously had problems, and I think by this time she was actually in a good place.
Right.
And it was then, I think, she did... Home is I think it was just before that I met her, and then I think she may have recorded it then. And also Home is Where the Hatred Is, which is an amazing
and what's the other? I hope you'll be very unhappy without me.
That's yes.
Favorite tune. Favorite tune.
Well, a bit negative, but
yeah, but it's a great tune.
I understand that.
And it's more often than not the genuine sentiment that most people feel after a breakup.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. You could definitely be right there.
I hope you'll be miserable without me.
Yes.
So management in the music, because it's kind of a managerial kind of guiding role that you played.
I think through Michael, I also met Doris Troy, and I think it was more advisory because obviously I only had limited amount of time because I was at the school, and I think with with a lot of artists, I think they need support getting just mundane things in order.
Yeah.
The creative side, they're great.
Yes.
But it's sometimes difficult to make sure they're at the right place at the right time with all the right equipment or whatever. So I think I was very supportive in the early days of especially people like Doris, who was a dear, dear, dear person. She was very, very supportive of everybody. You know, if you came to Doris with an idea, she would tell you, yes, just go do it, you know, really put yourself into it. And she would offer advice and...
So where's the picture with you and Doris?
Oh, right.
And Shaka? Yes.
This is much later. This is when she'd been in London in the 70s.
Right.
She'd been from late 60s, and she was actually working for Apple Music, for the Beatles, her and Billy Preston.
Right.
And so she was around...
Are you getting these names? She was just hanging out with them. Like,
and, but she then did... 1974, she did a week at Ronnie Scott's, and everybody came back to her flat for the after party. And there was a couple of people saying, "Oh, Doris, you know, you shouldn't be here, you should be in LA." And Doris got up and went to LA. It wasn't the best move.
right.
I think, unfortunately, LA is much more a place for young people or people who are very, very well established.
And connected. Yeah, you can't be going there at that time of your life to be starting from scratch.
No. I mean, thank goodness, eventually she ended up in Las Vegas, which I think was much more her scene. And I think it was really good, and she did a lot of work in the hotels there. But that photo was when she came back to London.
Vegas is a place that even now there's a lot of the major artists still end up going to Vegas and having their own shows in the hotels.
And you can make a lot of money.
Celine Dion.
Yeah, that's right.
Jennifer Lopez, they've all got their own shows.
Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Vegas.
So what had happened was, Doris's sister, Vi Higginson, who was a DJ on a radio station in New York, wrote Mama, I Want to Sing, which is the story of Doris's life, and Doris played the part of her own mother in it.
Right.
And
see, you're getting a bit of relevant history here from Mama, I Want to Sing, which everybody heard about. Because when was it out? Probably 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was 90s. I'm not very good. I'm not very good with years.
So but I remember it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a wonderful show.
So it was actually the story of Doris Troy's life.
Yes.
Mama, I Want to Sing.
Yes.
Because when it opened in London, as you see in the photograph, Shaka was playing the part of Doris's godmother. Right.
The young Doris, I can't remember the girl's name. She was a younger girl who was the star, but because no one knew of her, the star part was originally given to Shaka, and then Denise Williams did it, and then Misha Paris did it, that part. But yeah, they'd done it all over the world. It had started off Broadway, and Doris did phone me once, and she was in Turkey doing it. I have no idea what she was doing.
Really?
That they were doing it there. I know she worked an awful lot in Japan, but it was lovely when she actually did come over here, and she was here for a fair amount of time.
Right. Because how long did it run?
Oh, you've got me there.
Because it wasn't that long.
It wasn't that long. I think maybe 6 months, because we had 3 different stars, so it must be, I would think, maybe 6 months.
Yeah, it didn't run that long.
No.
But it was great.
Yeah, it was very good, but at that time it was still an early time for an all-black cast musical.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, they came over like P.P. Arnold back in the 70s with, was it Brown Sugar?
No. P.P. Arnold came over here with Tina Turner.
Right.
So she was an Ikette.
An Ikette, right?
Yeah, they came here and she stayed. If you want to know more about her history, she's got a book coming out soon, so watch out for that. And I think that will tell you all the stories.
Yeah.
But when she came over, she stayed and was signed to Immediate Records, which was the same one as the Stones. And she worked with Small Faces, and I mean, she worked with everybody.
Because I know she's very good friends with the lovely Pearly Gates, Viola Billups,
yes, she
who
is
we
indeed.
have had on this very show also.
And who is lovely.
Wonderful.
And I'm seeing her next week, so that'd be nice.
I just can't keep up with you. Now tell me about the club scene and the music scene with Greg, because I know you were good friends with Greg.
Yeah.
How did you all meet?
Well, there was a club in Mayfair called Gulliver's.
Wow, Gulliver's on Down Street.
That's right.
In Mayfair.
That's correct. Yeah. And I used to go there quite regularly. And I went with this girl one time, and the girl said to Greg, "Oh, I know you. You know, you work with the 3 Degrees," and she knew the manager of the 3 Degrees. So she was chatting away to him. So we sat there.
Now, just let me clarify. The Greg I'm talking about is Greg Edwards, who's an integral part of many people's musical education. And, as you said, was at Philadelphia Records.
Yeah, he was earlier on, yes.
Yeah.
By this time, he was at... he just started at Capital Radio. So he said, "Oh, you've got to come to a gig," and we went to a gig, and then we just sort of kept in touch after that. And I went quite a lot of times up to Capital, and he also did quite a few clubs and pubs, but the major one I think would have been the 100 Club in 100 Oxford Street, which I know.
Club, Saturday afternoons.
Yeah.
What was it, 12 till 3 or something? It was early.
It was a lunchtime session.
Yeah, it was a lunchtime session. It was almost in competition with Crackers, which was on the Friday.
Yes.
But
well, no, I think a lot of people went to both because you had the Friday and the Saturday.
Yeah, I was one of those that went to both.
And you shouldn't have been. You should have been at school on a Friday.
I was about 14, I have to say. About 13, 14. Probably progressing up to 15, but no later than that. But, I mean, again, back to Greg and the club scene. Yeah. The Lyceum, best disco in town.
Best disco in town, yes.
I mean, he was a major part of most people's musical education in London.
What some people don't know is that he was also, I think, he originally sat in for Roscoe, Emperor Roscoe, on Radio 1.
Right.
And he
These are
was
some names from the past.
He was probably I'm almost certain he was the first black DJ to do Top of the Pops.
Yes.
So I think he was the first in a lot, and I don't think he gets enough credit.
Well,
for
at the time, not only was he the first, he was the only one.
Well,
So you know, on mainstream like that, he was probably the only one.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember us progressing from Saturday lunchtime 100 Club to best disco in town on a Friday night. Yeah. And you know, then there were all the all-dayers and stuff, but he...
And also, out in... It's still Caister.
Yes, yeah.
The Weekenders, they were... Again, I think they were one of the first, proper soul Weekenders.
Right.
Which was Greg, Robbie Vincent and Chris Hill.
Robbie Vincent, Saturday mornings, BBC Radio London. Yeah.
So
all of those are the educators, for me.
But I do want to get back to the 100 Club.
Please do.
Greg did Saturday lunchtime. He'd also was doing a Thursday evening. He then decided not to do that for a while because he had other commitments. And so Nanda and Ron Leslie, who ran these sessions, put in all the Brit funk people. So people like Light of the World, Central Line, all those people all appeared at the 100 Club. In fact, that was probably their first West End proper gig.
Level 42.
Yeah. So, and Light of the World.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I knew them quite well because they were Hackney boys. And in fact, Breeze, who plays played for Like the World and is now in Brit Funk Association. His brother used to work for me at the youth centre.
Right.
So I saw them very early on.
Yeah.
So, and they're still going brilliantly. Well, they're going... Breeze and Kenny are still going as part of the Brit Funk Association.
But it just shows you how things evolve, because it started with Greg Edwards having a regular slot.
Yeah.
He then gave up that regular slot to do something else. It then opens the door for something else to come in, which is just as valid but different. An evolution, isn't it?
And that evolved into a reggae night.
Right.
And that's how come although I'd always liked reggae, but you know, you can't work in Stoke Newington and not know a lot about reggae. So, but Dandra and Ron had in the 100 Club on a Thursday night, they had both Jamaican artists, so you would have people like Culture, Mighty Diamonds,
Are you
Like
checking
the World.
this lady out? Are you hearing the names that this lady's talking about? Mighty Diamonds, what?
But they also, which I think is the most interesting thing, is that they had all of the young British reggae people. So that would have been Matumbi.
Because it seems like your journey kind of made a transition from soul and funk to more reggae, because what I'm seeing here, which you all will see in a second, is predominantly reggae artists.
Well, I worked a lot in reggae. I mean, I still went out and went to a lot of soul gigs as well.
Yeah.
But what happened was that one night I was at the 100 Club. I can't remember who was there, but it was obviously a reggae group, and Dennis Brown came in. So I was chatting to him, and I said, "Oh, Dennis, how come you're in London?" And I've not seen any interviews or anything.
See, I wasn't around then, so.
So he said, "Oh, me no." So I said, "Oh, right, okay. So would you like some?" And he said, "Oh, well, yes." So I phoned up a few people, got some interviews for him, because I did know quite a lot of people in the press anyway.
Right.
And then I ended up going up to Deb Music, which was in Battersea Rise, and they had the record shop downstairs, and upstairs they were just starting the record company, and they had a desk and a few chairs.
And a phone.
And a phone, yes.
There's always a phone.
There's always a phone, yes. And I don't know how it happened, but I ended up doing all the press and promotion for all the Deb Music, so...
Right, and there were quite a few names on that label.
Oh, yes, yeah, there was... mainly they were the English lot, so it would have been 15, 16, 17, Black Harmony, Black Stones, oh God, I can't remember, there were so many at the time. And so what happened was, I'd leave my youth centre at 9 o'clock at night, I'd drive over to Battersea Rise, I'd type, because before the times of computers, I'd type up the press release, and we did have a photocopier, so photocopied them and packed them all up ready for the next day. Whoever was in the office would take them to the post office. I'd also take some and take them to the radio stations and some of the clubs, so that there was a wider promotion as well as just, you know, the radio stations and press.
Right.
So...
now let's talk us through some of these pictures here. Now that looks like Gregory to me.
That is Gregory Isaacs, and we spent a lot of time on the road with Gregory because...
so you were also like a tour manager?
No, but I'd try and time keep, I think, would be...
Okay.
Not very successfully with Gregory, but, you know, we'd try our best. And yes, we did places like Manchester, Birmingham, Nottingham, and, you know, and it was an incredible tour because we had Gregory, 15, 16, 17, Black Harmony, Black Stones. That's
Black Harmony here.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Wow.
I know her and her sister died.
Right.
I'm not sure about Diane. That's Denise Dupé and Diane. I have a think someone told me that she had passed.
That's a distinct DEB sign there in the corner. Wow, that's a memory.
Yeah.
But that harmony.
They were lovely. But shall I tell you who were my favourite band from Deb? Me and You. I don't know if you remember them.
Stop now, let me think. You never know what you've got till it's gone.
That's exactly right.
I know my reggae music, let me tell you.
Well done, Barrie, well done. Brother and sister.
Right.
And it was lovely because if I said to them, can we do an interview at the office at 10 o'clock?
Right.
They'd be there.
At 10:15.
Yeah, well, 10 to 10 anyway. And all the others, if I wanted them there at 10 o'clock, I'd have to say...
I need you at 8.
That's close. That's close.
We all know that one. Okay.
That's definitely reggae time. But they were lovely. And the other person who worked there, who also worked for Black Echoes, is Snoopy. Have you ever come across Snoopy?
Never come across Snoopy. Tell me about Snoopy.
Snoopy at the time was a very young white man, but he was, I don't know, 16, 18, I would think, at the time.
Very young, not quite a man yet, still a boy.
No. And he also, he did a song on Deb called Eargasm. I can't remember what it was called. But he also worked at Black Echoes, and he was the first one who did Black Echoes Reggae Awards. Okay. And it took place in an old cinema in Stoke Newington, which is now a mosque. But that was, I think, the first reggae awards.
Lindsay Wesker used to work.
Lindsay worked later. He was later.
Who we've also had on this show.
And who is also a wonderful human being.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
Now, funnily enough, his wife, when I left Deb, I helped out at iTel Music. And iTel Music was in Stoke Newington, so just pop there in the lunch hour.
I love the way you coordinated the diary. That we'll do the kids in the morning, then we'll just slip over to the record company, then we'll slip back to the kids.
And they also dealt with Santic music as well. And Lindsay's wife was a member of a band called Prediction, who
They did an amazing version of Memories.
The Way We Were.
The Way We Were, that's it.
Right, well done, yes. Yeah. So, and I did the press release for that. Now, some of these people on Santic and iTel, I did the press releases, didn't always even meet the people.
Right.
I can't remember who it was.
So you were doing the promo for them and their product, but you hadn't even met them. Right.
No, well, I'd maybe be talking a bit more about the song, and also somebody would tell me about them, or they would, sometimes I spoke to them on the phone. Yeah. But I went because I wanted to interview one of the people. I can't remember who it was. They lived in the Angel Town estate in Brixton. I don't know if you know the Angel.
No, I have no idea.
Bit hairy. Anyway, I went up there.
But you survived to tell the tale.
I did. I went up there, and it's one of those places where it's long corridors and then blind turns. Yeah. Anyway, get there, ring the doorbell, nobody's home. In the end, I had to leave because I couldn't get hold of them. They said, we didn't hear the doorbell.
You mean they were there?
And of course, in those days, you didn't have mobile phones, so you had to wait till you got to a phone. It was a place that I think it was about 2-3 weeks later, someone was stabbed. Because he'd interfered in some... I remember it was an African man with a briefcase, and he told someone off, and they just...
Took his life. Yeah.
I didn't go back to Angel Town after that.
I wouldn't advise you to either. Now talk us through some of these.
Right, that's Gregory again.
That's Gregory again, isn't it?
Yes, that was, I think, Kurula one.
Oh, okay.
I did spend other time with Gregory because... quite frequently, things were running late and he had to renew his work permit.
Right.
So I would pick him up in Finsbury Park, go to Croydon to the Home Office to extend the work permit.
Okay. Junior Delgado.
Jux, they call him Jux.
Right.
Absolute sweetheart. Very sweet voice. Very sweet voice. Did have a disability on his hands. He'd lost some fingers.
That's news.
But
didn't know that.
Didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
He was a good performer, really good performer.
Oh, the tunes are going through my head as we speak.
Yeah. Dennis.
Dennis again.
Dennis, he and Castro, let me grab that one. That's Castro with Junior Delgado, were the owners of Deb Music. And
that's Castro Brown.
That's Castro Brown there. That's Junior Delgado and Dennis. Obviously, Castro did most of the day-to-day stuff because Dennis could be anywhere in the world.
So, it sounds like a silly question.
Yeah.
Was Castro related to Dennis?
No.
No, okay.
It's
they just shared the same name.
Name. Yeah. So, and the other people who worked there were Janet Davidson, who is still involved peripherally in music in Miami.
Right.
And I saw her, she was over a couple of weeks ago. And Margaret, who was Margaret Duval, and they ran the office. I think, you know, we shared the load. It was sort of really, it was women's lib up there.
Who's this one?
I'm sure you do know. That is Lloydie Coxon.
My God.
Yeah.
Now you say that, yes. A very young Lloyd Coxon, very young. Very young. See him?
Yeah.
Legend. South London sound system.
Oh, yes,
legend.
yes. Great. I mean, funnily enough, I did go to a Coxon sound system with Dennis and Castro. Well, the first thing that hit me, I think it must have been Metro, because as I was going in, outside it said iLEA Youth Club. So that was a youth club.
Inner London
Education Authority, which is who I was first employed by. And I go in there, and it's a proper Coxon sound system.
The cables overhead, love
yeah, and a little bit of smoke in the place. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm sure that the people at County Hall don't know this is going on.
This is going on.
And the other thing was that the bass was so loud that I had a hat on my head and it vibrated because I think, I can't remember who it was playing as well as Coxon, and they had these sound effects that like guns shooting from one side to the other, and they floated and literally nearly knocked you out. I mean, amazing.
Listen, that's a sound clash. That's mandatory.
Yes.
Shaka in one corner, Coxon in the other, Saxon in the other. Just letting you know, they're all South London sounds, yeah?
Yes, okay. Well, there was chicken over our side.
Yeah, chicken.
I'm trying to think who else. I'm trying to think who else there was over our side. A Fat Man.
Okay, I'll give you a Fat Man.
Who is also married to one of our ex-kids from Clissold.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
What's Fat Man doing now? Do you know?
I know he lives in Jamaica, but they do. He comes over quite frequently, yes, and he's still doing gigs over here.
That was a great sound system.
Yeah.
Are you still in the music industry?
Yes.
Because every time I see you, this is me at that party. This is me at that. You're with some artist, some singer, some concert.
I think now I kind of try just to help people out, to link them up.
Yeah.
So that if there's someone who's maybe written some lyrics and looking for backing to go on it, or vice versa, or it's someone looking for a manager, although that's very difficult.
Yeah.
Managers now are not what I call managers. They don't, and I'm going to use this word. Managers in the past used to go and hustle for their artists, for their artists, and legally, nothing untoward, but they went and said, "I've got this great artist. This is what they can do." Now, a lot of people seem to sit in their office and wait for someone to come to them.
So you manage yourself, go to them, and then they say they're managing you, but you're still running up and down doing all the work yourself. Yeah, it's all changed.
Yeah,
the industry is completely changed.
So, you know, it's very difficult now anyway to make a good living out of music. It's not easy.
Yeah. And you'd think it'd be the other way around to get yourself out there, because now you have social media in a way that you can use that you didn't have before to give you that extra exposure, but it doesn't seem to be working as you'd imagine.
That can work very well, but the problem is where you could make money from records, CDs, even go back to cassettes, you can't make money from that now. Because so much is digital, and all you get is a penny, 1 penny.
For each sale?
Yeah, wow. 1 penny, digital.
So where does it go? Where does the rest of it go?
Well...
Into the ether?
No, but you know, you think people, to download stuff, it's either free or quite cheap.
Yeah.
It's not like £10.
Yeah.
Where it would be, yes, yeah. Although it's nice to see that vinyl is back.
Oh, there's Miss P.P. Arnold.
Yeah, and an absolute
And this is the lady that came over with Tina.
That's
Turner.
right. That's right.
Right.
And stayed, and she did live in England for a long time. And then she did go back to LA. Right. And then she came back to England and now living in Spain.
All right.
But pops back and forth. Yeah. Yeah, she's done some... I think she just finished doing gigs in Australia, though. So she's
still gigging.
Oh, yeah. And better than some of the new artists. There are two... I won't say how old they are, but slightly older artists who I think are better than ever. One is P.P. Arnold and the other one is Madeleine Bell.
I was going to say, because Madeleine lives in Spain as
she
well,
lives
doesn't
about,
she?
I think, is it about 2 hours from Pat, but they do meet up occasionally.
Yeah, because I know Madeleine lives over there now.
Yeah.
With
and both of them.
That signature gap in the teeth.
I'm not saying it's... Not really there anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Moving on. But she's brilliant. She's still got a great voice.
Still doing it.
And comes over regularly and does places like Ronnie Scott's and sells out.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What was the group that she was with?
Blue Mink.
Blue Mink, that's right.
Yeah, because she was very friendly with Doris. She was very friendly with Doris.
It's that whole era. I mean... Even Tina Turner, as you said, P.P. Arnold came over with Tina as an icon. Tina went back, she stayed. But Tina is one of those consummate professionals. Yeah. That if anybody was to say to me that a lady of her vintage, shall we say, is on stage doing it with 3 dancers, a third of her age.
Yeah.
In the same outfit, in the same high heels, I would say you're lying. I had to see it for myself to believe it.
Yeah, she's now.
And I was in awe. I was just, it was at the O2, just phenomenal.
I saw her, she came over in the 80s and they virtually couldn't give her away in those days.
Yeah. She turned it around.
She turned it around. It was, I think, Let's Stay Together interested people, her version of that. And then, of course, she went on to do Private Dancer and the film, of course, which really made high profile for her.
Yeah, it did change around.
Yes, brilliant.
Now, you're a busy girl, as I've said, never stops. It's opera, it's concerts, it's galleries, it's openings, it's award ceremonies, never ending. What does Cherri Class do to look after herself and keep herself looking youthful and feeling fresh?
I don't know about that. I do eat reasonably healthily. I'm not saying, yes, I like a chocolate here and there. And
she's not lying. I bought her some popcorn and she refused. She would only drink the water. That explains it.
Just that I'd eaten before I came out, so I was fine. I do quite a bit of walking because I don't go underground. And obviously, going into town, you can't take the car most of the time because it's a nightmare. So I do get buses, and if the bus isn't coming, then I'll just walk. So I do a fair amount of walking, and I think that keeps you
physically
quite
active
fit.
as well.
Yes, yeah.
It's that low impact, continuous exercise that keeps you in shape.
I do like swimming.
Right.
Unfortunately, I kind of stopped doing it because it was getting too cold. And then it got warmer.
You don't do open air swimming, do you?
Oh, no.
Right.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Although Caroline Anderson, I don't know if you know, she's swimming the channel and doing all that kind of stuff. And I mean, just amazing.
Not for me.
No, not for me either.
Respect, but not for me.
Great respect. But she's an avid swimmer and, it's in the sea, it's in the channel. And,
Very brave. One funny story is that I went to see Doris in LA in 75, and a friend of hers said, we'll take you down to Malibu. And I said, great, that'd be lovely. So off we go to Malibu, and it's a private beach. So I thought, this is nice. Not, about 2 or 3 people, but further up, and I thought, this is weird. No one's swimming. Why is no one swimming? And I am, quite a strong swimmer. I think, all right, well, off I go. I get up to my knees, and the pool.
Right.
I turned round, came straight. It was frightening. I'd never had current like that.
That's how a lot of people drown, because you have to know the water.
Yeah. Oh,
and that's the mistake a lot of people make. They think that, I'm a good swimmer and I just get in the sea. But you have to know the beaches. And like in the West Indies, you'll find that the people that are there, they'll say, well, I only go into this beach to bathe. I'll go and sit on the other one to enjoy the view or whatever. But I'm only going to that one to bathe because they know how the current works on that beach.
Oh, definitely.
Because it's like you're swimming, you think I'm a strong swimmer, and then you're down and you're swimming, and when you look, land is back because the current has been taking you out,
Before I forget...
We don't want you to forget anything.
No. There is a really good exhibition at the Hackney Museum, which is on Mare Street.
Right.
It opened, I think, last week, and it's all about the contribution of black musicians from Hackney.
Okay.
So it doesn't have everything.
Nothing has everything.
But they've tried. I lent them some records and photos. I did lend them to some T-shirts and Black Slate T-shirt early days, which they didn't use, but that's not a problem.
Black Slate was from Hackney, wasn't it?
Yeah. In fact, did you remember their song Amigo?
Amigo, yeah.
I was the one who got them the deal for that. Because what happened was their drummer, Desmond Mahoney, brought me in the record when they'd pressed some, and I said, this is great. I said, give me some. So I took it down to Gulliver's, to Fat Man, Graham Cantor. I said, put this on, Graham. So he put it on, and Chris Hill was there that night.
Chris Hill, that's
and Chris and Nigel Grange ran Records.
Yeah,
and
that's who they were signed to.
Yeah, that's right.
The green label with the black.
That's the one. Yeah. So I introduced. Yeah.
You see, you've been an integral part in many careers.
Well,
many careers.
And the nice thing was, I actually, at that exhibition, I bumped into the lead singer, whose name has just gone, Keith Drummond.
Okay.
Hadn't seen him for about 30 years.
Also, how long is the exhibition on for, do you know?
I think it's on for quite a few months, so it should be there. Just,
Very
you can always phone up.
Contribution of a British reggae artist.
Yes. Well, it's not only reggae, because they've got Wayne Marshall.
Okay. But it's about the artist from Hackney.
From Hackney, yes.
Right.
They haven't got everyone, because there were certain other people I had tried to put him in touch with, but by the time he'd got in touch with me, they were running short of time.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody's there, but
So you walk a lot. You like the occasional swim.
Yeah.
With this busy schedule.
Yeah.
So what have you got coming up? What are your next endeavours, or is it just more socialite life?
More social life. I've been helping out with Pauline Henry occasionally.
Who we've
yes,
also
you've already
had on this show.
Yes.
We've got quite a library going on here.
Oh, yes, yeah. Other people, as I say, I've been trying to link up with other people. I mean, there are some really good artists. Last night I was at Toulouse-Lautrec in, not far from here, is it? Elephant and Castle.
Yeah.
And I think it's every second Wednesday they put on 3 artists, and they have a couple of music. It's acoustic set, and they have last night they had Lex Cameron on keys, who's amazing.
Lex,
I know you would know him, and Emlyn Francis. Do you know Emlyn?
No.
I bet you would if you saw him. On guitar, and the main act was Tim Hain, who is a white guy really into the blues, but also knows all the reggae artists because he's played on most of their tracks. And then they had a new to me, young woman called Frida, who I absolutely adored. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on her.
Right.
And then there was Piero, I think his name was, who's a young artist. So
you're out there and still doing it. It's amazing. I
love new talent, as well as, I mean, tomorrow's Omar, so that's older talent. I won't say old because I'll be in trouble. But yeah, I'll catch up with some of the people I haven't seen, and then I like to see new talent.
Yeah, because it's almost 50th. Yeah, it was his 50th. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoy live music. I really enjoy.
Yeah, but that's really where we come from. It was about going to the concerts, Maze and Roy Ayers and Earth, Wind and Fire. It was about seeing Luther. It was about seeing the big orchestra, big band on stage. It was, just seeing all the records you'd bought being played live.
Pauline's just got back from Australia, where she did a concert with Denise Pearson, Kim Mazel, one of the women from Chic, I can't remember the name.
Yes, okay.
And they used an enormous orchestra, and they did the Sydney Opera House. So, wow, it's...
I wonder if there's any footage of that.
I think, as far as I know, they are doing a video.
That would be lovely to see. Yeah. Well, Cheri, thank you very much for taking the time out to come and see us. Because I said she was trying to slip through my fingers and I wasn't having it. So I know you're a busy girl. Okay. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It was been lovely talking to you. And
it's been lovely talking to you too.
You'll be back on in a few months' time to tell us your new endeavours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Anything that resonates with you, please leave a message on the website or on the Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. See you soon.